Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Hulu clarifies why they asked the Buffy revival. So, Sarah Michelle Gellar said that it was an executive who simply just hated the original series. Chloe Zhao just said she was not surprised that it got asked. And so Hulu has come out and said, they asked it for a completely different reason and they wanted rewrites and everything. And they said that the show felt way too young and that it focused way too much on the new characters and the new Slayer. So they wanted rewrites to add Buffy in the show more and to make it a darker tone. So it seems like they didn't like the idea that the original star Buffy wasn't in the show that much, and that the show, I guess, was a little too silly, too campy and everything, and it focused way more on the new characters. This is the problem they was always gonna have when remaking this show. Well, technically, it's not even a remake; it's just a continuation. If you're going to continue a show and you're going to continue a show for a new audience, then the logical solution is to focus on the new characters and everything. But the problem is the older audience viewers are going to want the older characters. That was always going to be a problem when they announced this show. If they was going to announce it with a new cast, then they should have just kept it with a new cast. But of course, you gotta have some type of legacy character to kind of bridge the gap, or to bring in the older viewers and stuff. If you're gonna make a continuation, then it was probably best to just make it with the older characters and everything. Because even the younger audience people are still gonna watch if they watch that original series currently and everything. And as for the lighter tone, this is a problem. I also said because they're gonna try to recreate that Josh Whedon comedic like timing and stuff, and that's gonna be really hard. The MCU is having a problem with that right now, and it's just and other like even DC, because even Josh Whedon wrote some stuff for DC, and every once in a while they try to duplicate like what he did, but it's kind of like it's a certain style. And no, don't hire Josh Whedon. He has been canceled for a reason, and it's like humor is just way too much now in media, and I wish they would tone it down. Personally, for me, I do love the original Buffy series. Heck, I even love the original movie and everything. But the thing is like when I go back now and I rewatch the older series, it's kind of like the humor now takes me out of it. It's not the 90s no more. It's not a cheesy era no more. And so I would prefer a more serious tone Buffy show with some humor for levity. And that's just it. Not just to be campy, silly, goofy. You know what I'm saying? And so I guess in the new writer's mind, they feel like, okay, look, we have a younger audience. Let's dumb it down. Let's make it silly, goofy. And that's a problem I'm having with modern television when they bring back these younger, when they bring back these older properties for a younger audience. Kind of like Starfleet Academy. I have not watched the show. Let me clarify that. I have not watched this show since the pilot episode, but I have seen clips and I have seen certain reviews. And it seems really silly, goofy because they're targeting that younger audience and everything, which has pissed off a lot of the older viewers and everything who says it's just not Star Trek because it's a young YA novel type series. I felt the same way with the Disney Plus like Goosebumps series. Yes, Goosebumps has always been silly, campy. That's how it was in the 90s when it was cheesy and stuff. But they completely changed it in Disney Plus 20 years later for a younger audience. It was a YA novel series with still some goofiness in it, and it just didn't work. And so this is the problem Hollywood is gonna face. If you're gonna bring back an older IP, you gotta have that good balance of like, I guess like seriousness and humor. You can't skew too much into the humor because even a younger audience doesn't really like that unless they're little kids and everything. And the younger audience they're targeting are teenagers and young adults. So why you gonna have it silly goofy and everything for like little teeny tiny kids and everything? Like I get why Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is kind of the way it is for little kids nowadays because they're really targeting that younger demographic. But with that being said, when I was a kid, I had mature content and I was just fine. Like, I'm like, okay, like, I was able to rock and roll to it and stuff. And I think younger kids of today can do the same thing. The problem is, everybody has this notion in their head that if it's for a younger audience, make it stupid, or make it silly, or make it campy. But younger people can grasp mature topics. I did with Star Trek The Next Generation. I was a little kid when I watched that show and I understood everything. I watched Tim Burton's Batman movies and I was just fine as a kid watching those. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, I was fine with the darkness and the grittiness and I was a kid. You don't have to dumb things down for little kids. They can assimilate their brain into whatever it is they're watching and stuff. And the same thing for a younger audience. But now executives have put in the minds of fans and audience members that, hey, since this is an older show or older movie or whatever, let's dumb it down for the younger people because they won't understand or so it can relate more to them. And I hear a lot of people saying that, on YouTube and stuff. And that's because they have literally brainwashed people into thinking that. But thinking go back to when you was a kid and when you watched something like Married with Children. You might not always understood the jokes, but you still was able to grasp the maturity of that show, even though it was silly and campy and stuff. But Hulu said, they asked for rewrites. They wanted the show to be darker and they wanted Buffy to be in the show a lot more. Which, that's really the only reason why people are watching is for Sarah Michelle Gellar. It's kinda like the 2025 I Know What You Did Last Summer. I did not care for none of the new characters. I just wanted to see Ray and I wanted to see Julie and everything. And maybe Carla too. And then you could have added in like, the newer characters. But I wanted to see the main ones first. Same thing with Scream 5. I wanted to see Sydney, but instead I got Sam and everything. And adding more Buffy would not have hurt the show. Giving it a more darker tone would not have hurt the show. But if you're gonna go to the point of adding in these new characters, then of course it's gonna have to focus on them. We have to get to know who they are. Either way, this was never gonna work in my opinion. Trying to copy Josh Whedon's tone, introducing a brand new younger cast that looked like a bunch of teenagers, because that's what they're supposed to play, and then only really having one or two legacy characters. It was always going to be an uphill battle. Like, it really was. Like, you know what I'm saying? But who is really telling the truth? Like, I believe it's a combination of both telling the truth. I believe, yes. Maybe it was a little too silly, wacky, and maybe it focused too much on the young characters and didn't have enough Buffy. I also believe that, hey, maybe an executive just didn't like the original. So when the pilot bombed and everything and the rewrites didn't help, the executives all like, well, you know what? I just didn't like the original to begin with. Let's just get rid of this thing. However, the rewrites to it never got filmed and everything. Either because they just didn't want to put the money into refilming like the pilot and they just decided to axe it. Either way, this ain't happening. It's just not happening. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.